And that's the lovely Amy Brûlé with Je Tendrai. And my French, of course, isn't as good as Amy. She is a French speaker and a very talented performer, also known as Amy Sexton, of course. So I'll be playing Amy's songs tonight, French songs tonight. So that will be something else to look forward to. Now, you're listening to the Arts Program. I'm Pauline O'Shannessy Dowling, otherwise known as Pod. Lynden is away at her secret hideaway. I wonder if she can hear me. Hi, Lynden, if you can. She'll be back next week. And, of course, we go to air every Wednesday evening from 6 till 8 p.m. And we talk to all sorts of people about all sorts of arty and creative things and bring you lots of arty news and interviews for the 2 hours. And this evening, I'm lucky enough to have with me for the very first time on the show, I do believe, Lou Ridsdale from the Food is Free Laneway, Ballarat. Hi, Lou.
Popping my cherry. Hello, Pauline. How are you?
And Coleen Fillipa, who's been on the show before. And Coleen, you're from 15 Trees, another social enterprise.
Indeed. Thanks for having us tonight.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Now, we've got loads to talk about between the two of you. One of the things that's coming up, you're doing a collaboration where you're bringing some ephemeral art classes to the community. But I thought before we started talking about that, we'll talk about, you're both involved in social enterprises, aren't you?
Well, yes. So 15 Trees, so I call myself a social enterprise, which means I really put planet and people before profit. And so I've been running for 10 years here in Ballarat, but have been planting trees across Australia and New Zealand for the last decade.
And I believe you were planting trees under the Westgate Bridge quite recently. Would that be correct?
Yes, so just on Sunday we were down there. We planted, I don't know if we got all that many done. We're aiming for 600. We might have got maybe 400 planted that day.
What sort of a team do you need to be planting 400 to 600 trees in a day?
Well, we only had the morning. So you probably need a good team of maybe 20 to 30 because depending on the ground and depending if they've pre-dug the holes for us, which they had, which was lovely, and they'd actually laid out the plants for us as well. So it was an easy plant that day.
Okay, I want to find out a little bit more about 15 Trees and how you aim the social enterprise, but let's just hear a little bit about the Food is Free Laneway as well. How long has that been going for in Ballarat, Lou?
We actually celebrated our 5th birthday last Thursday, so 5 magical years of delivering food security platform beside my house, which I started up in guerrilla gardening. So it was something that I describe as green anarchy and what I describe as being quite naughty. But what a benefit it's been to, the community, and I've loved every minute of it. And we have an incredible team of 50 volunteers who help.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, it's been such a great experiment. It's been really interesting to see how well Ballarat actually has grasped the concept of something that is guerrilla gardening based and just the reasons why people come has been quite interesting. And I just think Ballarat's an amazing town. It's got such vibrancy and there's so many people who are willing to pitch in and help and share with others, and so it's just a space to share. And
it's another one of those social enterprises that it's a worldwide like there are many Food is Free laneways around the world, aren't there? Yeah, that's right. It's an open source movement that started in 2012. A guy called John, who I've become friends with on Facebook, who started it up in Austin, Texas on his front lawn. So the beauty of Food is Free, I find, is that all of the spaces have different flavours. So mine is a laneway. There's one in Port Arlington in Victoria in the coastal region that's a laneway. But then there's other spaces that actually have been community parks that have been taken over. There have been people who just put spaces out the front of their homes. John, as I said, in America, started verge gardening, so he set up a planter box out the front of his house. So verge gardening is planting on your front nature strip, isn't it? Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And of course, you refer to yourself as anarchist or guerrilla gardener because the laneway. I suppose we talk about it, can't we? Yes. Like the laneway in which you operate is actually a public laneway, isn't it? But it absolutely is. You've been upfront enough to start this Food is Free laneway in what is a public space, but it's 5 years later and people are loving it. There aren't any real sort of... No incidences in 5 years, Pauline. It's been incredible just to see everyone come and respect that space as well.
And I think it was the fact that I set it up so that it was very inclusive, but also that people can participate in it. People don't just come and take from it. People have got many opportunities and many layers in which they can actually give back to the space. So if you grow your own food and drop off some surplus vegetables, fruit or herbs, that's an opportunity. If you don't garden, we also have various layers in which people can help out. They can volunteer their time. They can. We are always after artists to come down and do some painting and things like that, creative sort of projects. People can just leave jars and egg cartons and toilet roll holders. Everybody has those. So I wanted to open it up so that everybody has an opportunity, regardless of their class, their gender, their circumstance, that they can actually be part of it as well. And I think that's been the secret little spice that's really kept it going, is that people feel like they own it. And when you have people feel like they own a community space, they feel attached to it, so they respect it.
Yeah, and I think people can see the benefits of it, can't they? And you know how great it is for the community and for meeting people, and for even I suppose that simple act of maybe picking up a few veggies. And I think you say on one of your bylines is you're happy for people to take food if they need to, and all you need to leave with is a happy smile or something like that. But of course, I suppose you'd like ideally for people to be contributing in some way.
But that's why we've opened it up so that there is always a way that people can contribute.
Yeah.
But we do have to remember that some people in society can't contribute for various reasons, and that's okay too. So we do have that saying, no one's judged on what they bring or take, as long as you leave with a smile. To be perfectly honest, people come more for conversation than they do for the food. So my focus is not really on the food, it's more about social cohesion. And it's been a great experiment because people just come and chat.
And look, it's a huge undertaking, isn't it? Like it's no small feat, is it, Coleen, to start something like that?
Oh, absolutely. And with 50 volunteers to coordinate, that's massive. That's time and effort. And
has it taken off? Like, are you surprised at how well it's gone and how popular it's been in Ballarat?
I guess in some ways I have, but I will admit that when I did set it up, I went inside and wrote a 10-year plan. I had intention for it to become something. It has been an absolute social experiment, and it's been incredible. I mean, the fact that City of Ballarat knocked on my door after 6 months of it running, which I thought they were there to pull the pin, and they said, we want to support. How can we support? And I was cheeky enough to say, I want the land across the road to grow food en masse, and they gave it to us. That was the surprise to me. The surprise in how much the City of Ballarat really has taken up and supported it, and they have been amazing.
Well, look, I think the City of Ballarat are very aware of, I suppose, community-led activities, aren't they? And they're very well aware of the benefits of something like this that can bring to the community.
Absolutely, I'm just that type of person who, if someone says no, I say why. So I think you just need a few pesky people in society to just constantly question and not be forceful, but just be very, these systems are there to be questioned. So just ask.
Yes, and you have that anarchist streak as well. Just before I go back over to Coleen there, just remind people where you're actually operating from and the park that you're using as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's located on the corner of Warrior Place, which I love the fact that it's called Warrior Place, and Ripon Street South. So it's beside my home. It's just one of those, CBD, Central Ballarat laneways that people access, and right across the road at 212 Ripon Street, it's actually on the corner of Urquhart Street and Ripon Street South is the Western Oval, and we are on the corner there where the brass band have their community hall. So we're between the homebrew shop and the Western Oval.
Yeah, and you have signage out and all those sorts of things, don't you? I'll come back to you and ask you more about some of the, I suppose, celebrities and people that have been involved in the movement. And I know you've got a massive program of events and workshops and things coming up, one of which is the ephemeral art, which you're going to be leading, I think, Coleen, aren't you?
I am, yes. Yeah. So I have to acknowledge Talina Edwards, so a local architect who put me onto ephemeral art through Instagram, I think. And I don't know, became a little bit obsessed with it, I suppose. So ephemeral art is that collaborating with nature. So what you do is when you're out in nature, you collect some sticks and some, twigs and maybe some shells if they're around, some moss, and you just make a little small piece of art. And the idea is, so the word ephemeral actually comes from the Greek word ephemeris, and it just means it only lasts a short time.
Yes.
And I think it only lasts a day. So depending on the conditions, I guess, your artwork may only stay around for, a couple of hours or a couple of days. So the wind and rain will sort of, break it down and erode it away, I guess.
It's quite a beautiful concept, really, isn't it? That it's not unlike, I suppose, the Tibetan monks that work with the sand and making the sand murals. And at the end of that, I think often the sand will go into the river or something like that. It's purely ephemeral.
Yeah, and I've seen some snow ones as well, where people in snowshoes have done patterns in the snow, and it's taken them hours and hours, and then at the end you have this beautiful, pattern that that eventually will go with the next dump of snow, basically.
And I know in recent years, I think I can remember when you first became aware of ephemeral art, because you did have you did ask some of your Instagram, you asked your Instagram followers to make ephemeral art and post it, and I actually posted some, because I go out along the Arrowee Creek a lot, so there's lots of opportunity for playing around with sticks and all that kind of thing.
And I think it just slows you down too. And I know you're a runner, Pod, but for a lot of people walking, out in nature, it forces you to stop a little bit and gather a few things together, and it doesn't have to be much. And then, quite often we take a photo of it. But when I come across a little bit of ephemeral art, and it doesn't happen very often, I'm just blown away. I get so excited that it's almost like a little secret message. Someone stopped here for 20 minutes, gathered some bits and pieces, and then moved on. It's like, I come along and see that.
And I think aesthetically as well, there's something about the use of those natural elements, and collating them into some kind of a piece of art. It's really beautiful, isn't it?
It is, and it never looks crappy.
Yeah, I agree.
You put it however you like. You put it together, and it always just looks, because it's nature, so it always looks. Yeah.
Do you know down along, often along the coast, people will make those little stone.
Yes, rock sculptures.
Yeah, would they be regarded as ephemeral art? Do you think? I suppose they would be, because
they would. Once the tide comes in, or I know they're there for a while, particularly down, is it Wye River?
Yeah.
They've got them there.
It's an amazing, it looks amazing down there, the way people stack the rocks, and there's just like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them along the beach there. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. You see it a lot in Tasmania.
Yeah. It's a really beautiful thing. So the idea of ephemeral art has completely captured your imagination, because of course you are, I suppose, dare I say, an eco-warrior yourself, and, your background is in environmental science, isn't it?
Yes.
And your 15 Trees social enterprise, of course, is about reducing our carbon footprint.
Yes, exactly, yes.
So this kind of art, I suppose, is...
it just fits in nicely.
Yeah.
And I guess, having that science background, a lot of people, who are into science and perhaps accounting and maths, we think we can't do science. We can appreciate it, but we're not. We see ourselves as not being all that creative. So this is just a nice way of joining in with the art community, I suppose.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone's creative.
Oh,
we
of
just
course.
have to give ourselves a little bit of time and not be too
worried.
Yeah.
Not be too worried about what it is.
being perfect.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's the it's that urge and that process, I think, that's important to a lot of artists, actually. So,
yes.
So you've you're a few years later now, you're running classes about what ephemeral art is and how to do it.
Well, this is sort of a one-off, really. So Lou and I we're both aware of each other, weren't we?
Everyone's aware of Lou, I think.
And we were trying to catch up for ages, and eventually we did catch up. So we've been working together on a few other little projects. But then she said, come and do a workshop. And I guess I grabbed this because I didn't want to be a workshop where it was just me up there talking. So I wanted to engage, I guess, kids and adults and whoever. So it's open to anyone to come if they've got their own little collection. And a lot of people do collect things, whether it's sticks or shells or stone. can. So, bring them along.
So you're encouraging people to bring along their own pieces of ephemera?
Yes, yep. So we'll have some baskets of gear, but obviously they've got their own, I'll bring my shell collection, and not that you really should be collecting shells anymore, but, it's over a long time.
So why aren't we supposed to collect shells?
Oh, well, it's like, that thing of, is it leaving, only leave a footprint and only take a photo sort of thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I do have a little collection of shells from years ago.
Lots of people do, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
I love that it ties in beautifully with the ethics of what we're all about at Food is Free, is just using what resources you have at your fingertips and knowing that things don't last forever as well. Sustainability-wise, we try to do as much as we can that will be sustainable for the future.
Yeah.
But that's not possible when you're a charity and you don't have, budgets and resources. So this ties in so very nicely. And, when Coleen suggested, I was like, this is perfect. Gosh, Ballarat has some amazing talent, and we're so happy to be able to, harness that and run all of these workshops.
Well, I think it's nice too, as you mentioned before, Coleen, for people to know that they're allowed to make art, and that there are all those materials out there sitting, I suppose, in forests and, perhaps along the Arrowee or places like that, where you can just make a little bit of incidental art and, really explore, I suppose, your creativity, and, potentially nobody will see that art that you make out there. And how liberating is that?
That's
I reckon.
Right, yeah. And often, I'm a Yarrawee Creek walker as well, up the other end from you, I think. And so I've put, artwork along the trackways, but quite often the next day, next week, I can't find it. It's already gone.
Blown away or something like that. Yeah. So what sort of materials do you think you'll be using on the day that you'll have in stock there that people can use?
Well, so we're going to bring some sand in and some pine cones, and I know Lou's been collecting sticks. Mm-hmm. She's got a collection of sticks.
Are they kind of local to your neighbourhood?
They're like backyard sticks. There are 0 miles there.
But isn't it amazing how beautiful sticks can look, just kind of arranged in some kind of a collection? It's extraordinary, isn't it?
I have a heritage-listed walnut tree in my backyard that has got moss growing over these twigs that have come down, and they're so beautiful. So I'm really thrilled that someone will be using those.
A heritage-listed walnut tree?
Yeah.
Do they grow very big?
Huge.
Yeah.
Massive.
Oh, amazing.
Shouldn't have been planted in my backyard, that's for sure, all those years ago. Yeah, but it's a magical walnut tree.
Yeah.
And the moss growing on it is just divine.
Yeah. Oh, how beautiful. So there'll be a bit of moss and some twigs and
some
stones of some sort.
Some of my shells. Some sand, and then
sand.
Yeah, so
that's interesting.
We'll just bring some sand from the sand pit. And
the sand could be quite a mindful kind of an activity too, couldn't it? Using sand for is there a particular way that you'd use sand, or is it just a bit like
it's just open? I was half thinking maybe almost we could put the sand down like a plate. But people could obviously use it any way they want to.
Yeah. Now, we need to find out more about this ephemeral art, where it's happening and all those kind of things. But I think we'll just go to a short break and listen to some more Amy Brûlé, also known as Amy Sexton. We'll have a listen to some more of her French music. And I'm going to put on La Vie en Rose. I absolutely adore this song. And then there'll be a couple of ads after that. So we will be back very shortly, folks. So stay tuned to the arts program.
UFS, we're here for you.
The Sturt Street UFS Pharmacy is now open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including public holidays. We even have a nurse available every night from 6 until 10 to help with minor ailments. 24/7, 365 healthcare now available at the Sturt Street UFS Pharmacy.
We're here for you.
Proud sponsor of Voice FM.
If you have a disability and are looking for a job you'll love, call EGF Solutions, specialising in inclusive employment. Part of the G-Force Group, with local offices in Ballarat and surrounds, EGF Solutions helps people of all abilities discover talents, harness strengths, and find rewarding long-term employment. Once you start work, you'll receive ongoing support. EGF helps people with on-site training, skill development, and confidence building. Chat to the team today at EGF Solutions. The job you'll love might already be waiting for you. egf.org.au. EGF Solutions is a proud Voice FM sponsor.
You know, we're different.
Well, you're a bit weird, but I think I'm pretty normal.
No, I mean, community radio is different. Here we are playing hardcore music. The other presenters do country, the all Aussie music hour, 70s and 80s, new releases.
Smooth music.
And more. There's local news and information. We even have a 13-year-old presenter doing their own show weekly.
Whoa, you're right. We are different. Community radio. It's different.
And there we are. Thanks for staying with us, folks. You're listening to the Arts Program, of course. It's on every Wednesday evening here at Voice FM from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. And I'm currently talking to women in social enterprise at the moment, Coleen Fillipa from 15 Trees and Lou Ridsdale from the Food is Free Laneway, Ballarat. And they've joined forces. And, Lou's bringing a whole lot of workshops to the community. We're going to talk about that more in a moment. And Coleen is running a particularly interesting one on ephemeral art.
I know, and I love how you said we join forces because we are more powerful, aren't we? Well, you really have. Are more powerful together.
Absolutely. And as an artist, that collaborative thing is a really powerful way to work, in terms of like ideas and just getting things done. I think it's amazing. So Coleen, when you run the ephemeral art class, you're going to talk a little bit about what it is. Do you go into the history and things like that?
I will a little bit, yes. Yeah. So I have been reading up on the topic, and so I will talk a little bit about it, but I'll just wait to see what the audience is. If it's mostly kids, we'll just get into it.
You'll be very good at that because you're a teacher, aren't you?
I've got
yes. So you know about reading the kid audience and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, people will be doing a hands-on workshop. So that's coming up very soon, isn't it?
Yes, so Lou, it's Saturday week, yeah?
That's it.
Saturday week at the Food is Free Laneway.
No, we're doing them at the Green Space, which is 212 Ripon Street.
212 Ripon Street.
It'll be in the hall there.
It's
the Municipal Brass Band Hall, but it's a multi-user space and it's also shared with the kindergarten. So that's what community's all about.
Fantastic. And, of course, I know that there is a Facebook event doing the rounds, which I'll share again later so people can see where and when and everything. And people can still book in for that.
There are tickets on Eventbrite, that's right. So if everyone goes to the Food is Free Laneway Ballarat Facebook page, you'll see on the events page there's all of our workshops listed there for November and December. We're just capping it at that because I've been a bit crazy and I've booked in 70 workshops. Well, that's the gamut of talent in Ballarat, and I'm just doing all of those sort of workshops that are inclusive to anyone, and it's not just gardening is what we do, at Food is Free. So really we're doing botanic drawing next year with Louisa West. She's going to run a photography class in gardening as well.
Wow. So
it's not just garden-based stuff. There is some crafts things and activities for families. And
it's really about community and bringing the community together and I suppose celebrating.
It is. What I love about it too is it's very hard for artists. I've worked in arts for the last 20 years myself in the music industry, and I know damn well how hard it is to find a setting that you're comfortable with and you're not scrutinised and judged with other creative people. So that's what we set up for these workshops, is that everyone can just get in there and, give it a go.
Yes.
Don't judge yourself. We're not judging you. Everyone is welcome and all ages. Come on down.
Fantastic. So
check out all the events on the Facebook page.
Yeah, and as you said, there are lots of them coming. Did you want to highlight a couple more that are coming up?
Yeah, well, just in the arts sort of vein and crafts sort of thing, this Sunday actually we're doing a really big shout out for people just to come down to the hall at 11 a.m. at 212 Ripon Street. We're doing an origami seed packet making workshop where one of our old volunteers, Lee, I've coerced her back in, makes a whole lot of recycled paper origami seed packets. And what happens with those is they end up in our laneway in the seeds toolbox. There's always seeds for people to take to grow their own food. We pride ourselves on that, but we can't keep up the demand. So I just thought we'd have a whole crowd come down and
that's
just do a
cute.
session. We'll make cups of tea and people
Yeah.
can just hang around, come for half an hour, come for the full hour.
And so it'll be making packages for the seeds.
That's right, out of origami, a little system that,
that sounds a bit cute.
It is
and what sort of seeds do you have?
Oh, anything.
Yeah.
Like whatever's in season, with kale,
Yeah.
beetroot, carrots, flowers as well for companion planting and beneficial insects and that sort of thing. So, all vegetable seeds. So, we love the seeds toolbox. But we've also got coming up at the end of November, on the 24th, Sunday the 24th, a Family Crafts Day with Anna at 11 a.m. as well. And that's just an opportunity. Anna Paxton.
Oh, yes.
Anna Paxton works at Monash Organics. And
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so she just, she really loves anything that's holistic and nature-based. So she's going to do a whole bunch of activities with families just to get together and do some crafty things.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, well, community, that's what we do.
Yeah.
We bring everyone together and...
Yeah, well, congratulations on everything you do. I can see that you're going to have to come back and expand a little bit more on what you're doing up there and keep us up to date with the workshops and things that you've got happening at the Food is Free Laneway, Ballarat. People, you can find that really easily on Facebook, and I'm sure is there an Instagram account people can follow,
Food is Free Laneway.
and website and what have you? Yeah, you've got it all happening, haven't you?
Yeah, on the website also there's some great information. If you want to join the mailing list from the website, there's a pop-up that comes up and then you'll get all of the information straight into your inbox. It's foodisfree.com.au.
Okay, so of course, as Lou was saying, there's the I suppose organic plant-based element, but there's also the creative workshops and community togetherness element of that as well.
So how lucky are we in Ballarat to have, Lou and her group of 50 volunteers, putting together these fantastic events.
I do often think, oh my God, you're an amazing energy. It's amazing how much you get
Some
done.
would say mad, but thank you.
Yeah, well, I have a little bit of an understanding, I think, of it's no mean feat. And of course, I suppose you've had just on a final note too, people like Costa from Gardening Australia has been to visit the Laneway and what have you, hasn't he?
He's been an incredible support.
Yeah.
He's become really good friends with Costa, and he's just people like that who just support our project are amazing. So, I just recently did a talk with Paul West, who was in town as well, the gourmet, River Cottage. He launched his book and I got up and did a conversation with him. We've had all sorts of people come, but it's just the people, the everyday people who come by that mean the world to me.
Yeah, people get it, don't they? And thank you very much, Coleen Fillipa from 15 Trees.
My pleasure.
And are people able to contact you? I know what you do is you're planting trees to offset.
So we plant trees to reduce your carbon footprint.
Yes.
So I try and get companies and individuals supporting community groups with their tree planting projects.
And do you have people contact you about tree plant, buying trees to plant?
Yeah, so we encourage people to purchase trees that we then organise to go out to community groups. So you might want 15 trees to reduce your car's carbon footprint for 1 year, or you might want to reduce your flights. That works. The calculation is 1 tree per hour in the air.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you head off to Japan for 8 hours, and if you're coming back, that's 16 trees.
There's been a lot more talk about that recently, has there? About that they're in the air, kind of, how we need to be aware of all of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And people can follow you on Facebook, 15 Trees on Facebook, and website, Instagram, and find out more about what you do and find out, what 1 tree equals. That's really interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much. We're going to listen to some more Amy Brule, and then we'll be back with more of the arts program, so stay tuned. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Pod.
Thank you.
Recycling in Ballarat is changing. Be one of the thousands of people in Ballarat who recycle the right way. No glass in recycling bins. To recycle your glass, take it to a free glass drop-off site across Ballarat at Alfred Square, Ballarat Greyhound Racing Club, Buninyong, Gillies Street Transfer Station, Lucas, Midvale Shopping Complex, Miners Rest General Store and Stockland Wendouree. More locations coming soon. Recycling in Ballarat is changing. A message from the City of Ballarat and Community Radio, Voice FM. Caring for the community.
Classical Delights can be heard every Friday afternoon from 1 till 3 here on 99.9 Voice FM. I'm Nichols and I share this show with my good friend Anne Woods, who brings her own inimitable style to the program. You can hear Albinoni to Zamfir, Baroque to Contemporary and just about anything in between. Tune in for Classical Delights and enjoy the wide variety of music.
Well, we're back with the arts program. Of course, the arts program is on every Wednesday evening from 6 till 8 p.m. My name is Pauline O'Shaughnessy Dowling, otherwise known as Pod. And my co-host that's usually here, Lynden, is away this week, having a little break after a very busy photo biennale season. So she's having a well-earned break this week. And with me in the studio now is Shelley Hinton. Good evening, Shelley.
Good evening, Pod.
You are the curator of the Post Office Gallery at Federation University.
That's right.
And have been for a number of years now, haven't you?
I have. I think a decade.
Yeah, I was going to say, you must be coming up for a decade.
Long service leave, I'd say.
At least a party, I would have thought.
Oh, I think so. It's coming up.
You have a very busy program of events every year. And, of course, you know, for example, you're involved in White Night. You've been involved recently with the Photo Biennale. But you have another exhibition opening on Friday evening, and I've just been saying to you off air that it seems to be creating quite a bit of excitement. An artist by the name of Joseph Boys. I've pronounced that correctly?
Yes, you have, yeah.
The exhibition is called The Revolution Is Us.
That's right.
I love the title.
Yes, it is a strong title.
A lot of people know this artist. He's a well-known conceptual and mainly performance artist.
That's right.
That died, I think, in 1986.
That's
so
right.
was active, I suppose, mid-20th century. Tell us a little bit about Joseph Boys.
So, Boys, as you said, Pauline was born in Germany in 1921, and it's interesting thinking about that particular time because, you know, it was sort of in the 1940s when the Second World War started, and Joseph was actually a pilot, a Luftwaffe pilot during that time. He'd had a strong interest in art and created quite traditional works. But during the Second World War, he'd actually had a life-changing experience, which in some ways has been seen as being quite controversial because he describes himself as being in a plane crash.
Yes. Was that true? Was he in a plane crash?
He was in a crash, but the next part of the story has been disputed, and that is that he was actually discovered unconscious by the Tartars, which was in Crimea, or that particular group of people exist in Crimea at the time. And that particular tribe that was semi-isolated, they were, according to Boys, his saviours and rescued him. The plane that he was in, there was another guy in the plane who sadly perished, and he said the fact that he wasn't wearing his seatbelt meant that he survived, and in his description he says that, you know, he didn't like the restriction of the seatbelt because he liked the freedom of not having that on, which is kind of in a way symbolic of the whole way he lived his life, and that was a sense of independence and freedom, and that comes through you know, time and time again. Ultimately, the Tartars apparently saved him from his position of being unconscious in the snow by wrapping him in felt and fat. And the felt was actually the materials the Tartars used for their tents.
Oh, yeah. And fat as well, animal fat.
And fat. And the fat and the felt, the combination of that was that it generated warmth and helped his body rejuvenate back to good health. He had shocking injuries. He had injuries in his jaw and skull that had to have, multiple operations for later. But in fact, he was found after 12 days. So it was amazing that he actually survived, and that he attributes his survival to that.
To the Tartars.
Yeah, yes. And so a lot of his work responds to that. And you could say that at that particular time it was a turning point where he started to think of the social act of kindness and compassion that the Tartars showed, that the symbolic elements of those particular materials that he used time and time again in all ways. And he started to think of sculpture and the way that he worked as an artist as being more of a social activity that all of us could actually be involved with. And that further to that, all of us are actually social beings, and that each of us are also creative beings.
Yes, I really, I must say I was really drawn to that sort of, those sort of theories of his, that everybody is able and capable and an artist, because it's really quite true, isn't it? Like,
it is.
People, everyone has like some creative. So even though people will often say, "Oh, I'm not creative at all," it's just, I suppose, a matter of finding that that creative spirit, I suppose. Now, it's interesting, that story that developed that you said has never been proven, but part of his sort of story, because he's well known for his performance art, isn't he? So it's almost, one could think that it's possibly part, because didn't he also say that life is like, the act of, society and, being alive, and humanity is like an art form in itself, that he saw that, just the way that we exist on this earth as having been quite a creative thing, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he wanted to use his work as kind of stimulants to and forms of inspiration and awakenings for people. So he wanted, through his work, he used a lot of materials that were actually like a metaphor and symbols of what he wanted people to be awakened about.
Yes.
And a part of that was about us as a society, how we want to live,
yes,
and how we should be free, and how life should be democratic. Democratic. I was going to say demographic. Democratic.
I suppose in reading about Boys, there's lots of isms and there's lots of different movements he was involved in, and really
definitely
interesting aspects to his art, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And look, he wouldn't have been the first, and he certainly won't be the last, that had that very strong view that art is about making a statement about how we should be living, as you were just saying. But I suppose he, this was something that he based his oeuvre,
whole philosophy
on.
I think further to that, his involvement with the Fluxus movement was very influential. And
just remind us about Fluxus.
So the Fluxus movement is quite similar to Dadaism in that it's the group saw themselves as removing the aesthetic importance or significance of art. So art, and this is where, like, everyone is an artist. It's like, art can be social, art can be a happening. Art doesn't have to be just something that's aesthetically pleasing to look at or an object on a shelf. Art is about how we live, how we speak. And there are kind of, in Boyce's own words, he actually talks about thinking forms and how we mould our thoughts, spoken forms, how we shape our thoughts into forms, or social sculpture, how we mould and shape the world in which we live. So sculpture as an evolutionary process, and that's where he says everyone is an artist.
Yeah, I think that's where I was sort of trying to head before, but I was kind of stumbling over my words that, you know, the way that we live and the way that we act is an art form. It's really interesting, isn't it?
It is, because what he tries to do, and I think, you know, the Fluxus movement, by the way, hasn't finished. It's ongoing.
Could you describe that also as, artists that are in focus on process rather than the end result? That's
right. So George Mecure was actually the founder of the Fluxus movement in the 60s, and Joseph Beuys was one of the, you know, founding members of the group, but Yoko Ono was a part of that group, and John Cage, you know, the very well-known John Cage. And, you know, when I think of that amazing work, I think it's 4 minutes 33 is of John Cage, where there was no music. That's a revolutionary work, and I've watched a video of that actually happening in a theatre in London, and it was quite, like a revolutionary kind of concept to have the notion of something that's musical, but it's not music that you hear, and it's about, you know, the concept of sound and what we expect, and it's a little bit the same in that the way that Beuys works. You know, we have a notion of what our art should be, but who's setting the goalposts? You know, who's deciding that? And it's not, you know, art can be on a spectrum, very broad. And he comes from perhaps the most leftist approach, and then there are other approaches. It doesn't mean the other approaches are wrong. His approach is that he's trying to really push the boundaries, and he does say how it is. His work is about encouraging a response. He wants people to respond because that is about, you know, it's about challenging us and making us think more deeply about our existence.
Yes, and I suppose he was very, I suppose, as you've just been explaining, very much a social philosophy kind of approach to, like, very philosophically and pedagogically based, I think.
Definitely. He was a teacher as well.
That's interesting. Because
and although he was thrown out of one of the universities that he was working at because he actually wanted to bring in all the students that didn't get in, and then he was sacked. But, you know, that sort of shows how, you know, the notion of the strict regime of only accepting students at a particular level.
Is that where he came across Steiner, the Steiner way of thought?
Quite possibly.
In his teaching?
But I think it could have been earlier than that, before he was actually teaching. But yes, Steiner is a bit the same in that the way that that educational format is holistic. It's not just about, you know, the subjects. It's about the creative, evolving, changing mind and our connection to, you know, our environment. And it's a very philosophical approach, an open way of learning, and about play, and allowing children to learn at their own pace.
And I think also there's an element there too about, I suppose, the power of the individual to create change and social change, isn't there?
That's right, and freedom.
So it's a really, an amazing sort of background, like a really interesting character, isn't he?
He is fascinating.
That story about his, you know, being saved during the war and what have you. That's quite interesting in itself. This exhibition, is there a mixture of film and sculpture?
There are three films, fairly early films. One of them actually is quite interesting, that films Beuys just looking into the camera. They're all fairly short films, and they're not large-scale projections. They're quite small-scale, which is interesting in itself because it kind of gets you thinking kind of more intently about the image and what you're looking at and why. One of them is particularly about a performance that he was giving at the time during the 1960s, and another is of him that has no sound looking at the camera. But the three of them are really fascinating films, just from the point of view that they are quite, they were filmed a long time ago. But otherwise, there are sculptural works. There are the zinc boxes are quite fascinating in that they're about what Boyes refers to as polarity thinking. So one is zinc, like pure metal, and the other is zinc covered in sulphur with a netting kind of webbing in the corner.
Where did all of this work come from?
It's actually by way of a private lender in Melbourne. And I should mention the lender by way of the Joseph Boyes Cafe, which will be eventuating very shortly. The lender doesn't want to be named individually.
Yes.
But he's actually starting what's going to be called the Joseph Boyes Cafe.
In
which
Melbourne.
Is going to be, yes.
Oh, that'll be really interesting.
Yes, it is. It's something to look out for.
And, of course, the exhibition opens this Friday evening at the Post Office Gallery.
That's right.
I think Tony Chu from...
Rick Chu.
Rick Chu from Fed Uni will be opening the exhibition and probably talking more about
actually,
the work.
Ian George will be. Ian George, who's key to the exhibition, he'll be opening the exhibition.
Okay.
And Rick Chu will be speaking, as well as I can't think of the other speaker's name.
Well, people will find out when they go to the opening on Friday night.
They will
at 6:30 p.m.
They will. It will be. It will be an exciting evening.
Yeah, I reckon so.
From the point of view of Ian George's talk, he's a specialist in Joseph Boyes, so he'll be speaking about his work, and
that will be fascinating. So people need to be there at 6:30 for this opening, don't they?
6:30 for speeches at 7.
Yeah, at the Post Office Gallery this Friday evening. That will be so exciting. So highly recommended, folks. And the opening hours are still the same. Wednesday.
They are Wednesday to Saturday 12 to 5. Except we're actually open this coming Sunday because the exhibition coincides with Compassion Week Ballarat, which is a really important week, which is happening now.
Yes.
There are a whole range of programs, and there's a booklet that's available as well as a website. And Lynn Reader, Dr. Lynn Reader is who I was trying to think of before.
Yes.
And Dr. Lynn Reader is a fellow of the Federation Uni, and she'll be speaking about Compassion Week Ballarat, and she's one of the key people on the steering committee of Compassionate Ballarat, and which is a really important global movement towards compassion.
Yes.
And of course, because of Joseph Boyes' exhibition, it just so happened we could time it to sit within Compassion Week Ballarat. But that's why I wanted to open from 12 o'clock on Friday, so anybody coming for that conference can visit then, and then they can come later or stay around for the opening.
Fantastic. Now, we've just got a few minutes left. That'll be fantastic. So get along to that Friday night, folks, and get to see that exhibition. Really interesting stuff. The Reverb exhibition.
Yes, so we've got an alumni exhibition coming up at the end of the year. We've been doing a suite of them. We started with the 60s, 70s, and we did the 80s, and now we're doing the 90s.
Exciting.
So Reverb returned to the 90s, and I want everyone who's actually studied at Ballarat Uni, it could have been Ballarat College or Ballarat TAFE, to put in an application. There's information on the Post Office Gallery website, on Facebook, on Instagram, and everyone's welcome who is eligible, who studied
during the 90s.
Studied
visual arts or fine art.
Yes, that's right. To actually apply.
Yeah, and you've got until the 24th of November to get an application in.
Yes.
And those exhibitions and opening nights and what have you just go off. They're great, aren't they?
They're actually a party.
Yeah.
So what I do is open it up into the theatre, and we actually have a big party.
Yeah.
And it's great. And I always try and get a themed catering for the night as well.
That'll be interesting, coming up with a 90s theme.
I think I'll have to go through suggestions for that one. I'm not sure what the 90s did into. Maybe we became more foodie.
Maybe
at that point.
That would be nice for opening night, wouldn't it? And of course, this will be the exhibition that's at the Post Office Gallery throughout the summer or December.
That's exactly right.
A period until I think early January, something that. The Reverb exhibition.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's exciting too. So all of those 1990 decade arts graduates, make sure you go to the Post Office Gallery website and get that expression of interest. And
they can call the gallery if there's a problem. And the Post Office Gallery website is very up there, and you can go to that at Federation University /PO Gallery.
It's easy to find. And as you said, it's on the Facebook page as well. Oh, that's terrific, Shelley. That the Joseph Boys exhibition, it just sounds like so wonderfully intellectually stimulating. And
it will be.
And, really interesting that it's coincided with Compassionate Ballarat and great sort of food for thought in these interesting times that we live in globally, isn't it?
I think, in fact, thinking about Joseph Boys and his interest in the environment, it's kind of interesting that, like all really good artists who often are thinking far ahead of, the rest of us. He's a great example of that. He is a revolution in his own right.
Yeah, and as I was saying earlier, that it has caused quite a stir already. I know there are people talking about this exhibition, so get along on Friday night.
Everyone's welcome to come along to the opening, so I hope to see lots of local
it'll be great.
People.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much, Shelley Hinton, Curator of Post Office Gallery. And
thank you, Pauline.
We'll talk to you again, hopefully when Reverb is coming up. Maybe. Hopefully we
terrific.
can.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And we're going to listen to some more Amy Brule. I'll be back very shortly with more of the arts program.
Or contacting the station.
Thank you very much for that announcement. We're back with the arts program. I'm Pauline O'Shannessy Dowling, otherwise known as Pod, and with me in the studio now is Laura Day. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well indeed. Now, I'm not sure if in years past have you been on the show before? I feel like you have been talking about your artwork at some point in time.
It would have been when I first moved to Ballarat,
and
that was in 2011. So I don't know. No, I think
maybe
I was on probably another program on Voice FM.
Yeah, with Dave probably. Well, welcome to the arts program. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
You've been working towards, I think it's your first solo exhibition. Is that right?
It is. It's my very first solo exhibition.
Yeah. Nerve-wracking in some ways.
Nerve-wracking, exciting, everything all in one.
Yeah. You have an exhibition called The Healing Pallette, which is currently installed in the gallery lounge at the Mecure.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it's already up.
Yeah.
The opening is this Saturday, though. So we're having some refreshments, and it will start at 12 o'clock. From 12 till 2 in the middle of the day.
And, of course, everyone is welcome to this event, aren't they?
Yes, everyone's welcome.
And as I was saying to you, I've been to see the exhibition today. It's open to the public now, and I suppose the opening hours are quite extended because it's in quite a public kind of place, isn't it, at the gallery lounge there? I mean, I suppose it's potentially open in the evenings for people to look at as well.
Yeah, well, the hotel's open, I guess all the time. So there's no set times, gallery open times. Yeah.
So let's talk about this work. You've got a combination of works on canvas, works on paper, some quite small works, some quite large works, I suppose. What sort of medium are you working in, Laura?
So I use acrylic paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I use mixed media as well. So some of my work is just purely abstract and expressive brushstrokes, and then I also use mark making as well in my work as well. And
so with your mark making, you might get an abstract background with your acrylics on paper or canvas, and then make some finer marks over the top of that with another material.
Yeah. I like to use water soluble crayons or pens, pencils, and then adding texture marks and oil pastel. I've also experimented with oil sticks as well on top of the acrylic, and I really like that.
Is that
lush,
just gorgeous fun? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it creates a really interesting depth to the work.
Yeah, and we've been talking tonight about process art with a number of guests, and focusing on, I suppose, that process rather than the end result. I'm kind of, I've watched this body of work of yours grow, I suppose, and I've watched some of the videos that you've posted. There's very much that kind of mindful element, I think, to the way you make your work, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a lot about the process, isn't it?
It is a lot about the process and my experiences within the process and what that process means to me as well. And I think over the years, and especially in the last few years, I have actually found new meaning in the creative process as part of my own healing journey. And for me now, art plays such an important role in as a healing modality for myself. Like I will go to my art tools when I need some upliftment or when I feel like I need some personal nourishment, and it really has like quite a profound impact in my life. You
were saying that the making the work has come to mean something quite new to you in recent times. I know once upon a time you were doing a lot of printmaking, weren't you? Screen printing.
Yeah.
And then you took a little bit of a sabbatical for a while.
Yeah, I did.
And now you're back, I suppose, using new material. So tell us a little bit about what the work has actually come to mean to you. What's it sort of giving you, and what are you deriving from it?
Yeah, so I guess I studied printmaking as my major in university, and I was doing screen printing, and I established a screen printing tutoring business here in Ballarat when I first moved here. But the sabbatical you're talking about is when I got quite sick. So I have an autoimmune disease. I have lupus. And in 2015-16, it got very serious, and I had to drop out of life completely, really, and just focus on getting well. I was in survival mode. I was getting quite intensive treatment in hospital and in and out of hospital.
So not too much art making at all?
No, not too much at all. And I had to quit work completely, and I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. My partner was supporting me for 2 years. And then as I was coming out of that, I started to get back to a relatively normal life, and started to bring things in that really meant something to me. And that's when the art making came back in, and that's when this whole body of work started I planted the seeds for it to blossom and to evolve and grow, and that's what's come out of this.
And it's a really beautiful thing, actually, because as you mentioned, your work is quite abstract with some mark making over the top, but and people can see you making the work on your Facebook page. You post beautiful videos of the work in process, and I've been watching those. They're quite beautiful, of you laying down various colour swatches or patches, I suppose, and kind of matching those up, and people can see that in progress. It's a really, you're saying that it's been very beneficial to you, but even for that onlooker, I think it's very beneficial. It's a very mindful kind of a way that you're working. Would you say that's...
I get consumed in other people's process videos too. It's almost like you're experiencing the process with them, and you're experiencing that enjoyment and that...
Because you can see in your video like the brush marks, and it's very quite close up, and it's really, really a lovely thing to watch, I must say.
And it's a nice break, I guess, when you're scrolling through social media too. It's actually like a nice break from the noise of it all. And to get immersed in someone else's process video. So I do like sharing them, that it's quite fun. And it's actually quite useful for me when I'm referring back to it as well. Like, so when I'm taking notes on a certain process that I'm developing, or it's interesting just to see how it evolves from an outside perspective, and it's nice to refer back to if I'm wanting to approach a new work and use a similar technique. I can sort of use that as a personal record for myself.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And what about your colours? Like, how are you? I mean, there's the colour. Like, it's a real. To me, when I went today, it looks like a real beautiful spring colour palette. The colours are very, very spring-like. I think in most of them, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything very dark. There might be one painting with possibly a black background, but very sort of spring-like. What are you doing? How do you choose your colours?
Yeah, I do have quite a bright, vibrant palette, and I think a lot of it is around bringing myself joy as well. So, I love using yellows and oranges and pinks, and I've got this beautiful card deck, and it's about the healing power of colour. And so sometimes when I'm starting something new, I'll pull out one of the cards and I'll use that as the basis of a painting as well. So it's really nice to look into sort of like the meaning around certain colours. But I am quite intuitive with what I choose as well, and I like to use like quite good quality paint as well, because that just like gives that extra vibrancy.
It sure does, and you can see that well as well. And so the actual painting process itself is quite open-ended. Like you just sort of don't necessarily have a full-on vision that you're trying to create. You'll just like say if you're working on a canvas, you'll just see what happens with colour and shapes and what have you.
Usually, sometimes I have a slight idea in mind, but most of the time I just approach the canvas and just see what I'm guided to. So it's more like a gut feeling, and I might feel like picking up a stencil, which I actually have been incorporating some of my printmaking past into the painting as well. So I might pick up tools like stencils, or I might just pick up the paints and just intuitively choose some colours and just start with it.
And I suppose in some respects, people that are looking at the art or listening to us now or watching the videos, I suppose it can seem that, you can't go wrong, but you still have to, once you start like a colour exploration, you're still making a lot of decisions, aren't you? And I suppose especially with your stencil marking over the top, like they're quite... You have to make very careful decisions about how things are going to work, don't you? How do you find that?
I actually had like some really interesting experiences around that too, because I was having trouble about, it would have been 4 weeks ago, with bringing works to resolution. So I'd get my canvases to sort of 3/4 of the way, and then I'm like, I don't know how to finish this one.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
So I sort of had pretty much like half of my work for this exhibition unfinished. And I'm like, how am I going to finish this? But in the end, I don't know, I just made space in my life, and I've sort of dedicated a few days, and I just really like honed in and started completing work, and it just came.
I think it's an interesting process, isn't it? Because you do have to, it's an interesting and very affirming process, because you do have to learn to trust yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
And trust your decisions.
Yes.
And take a risk.
Yeah, definitely. I must say, I have to give credit. I do some work for a local painter, Susan Nethercote, and she has been mentoring me through this whole process and sort of talking me through and sort of helping with those like usual stumbling blocks that you come up with. Because I guess stepping into painting, I'm learning a new medium again. I mean, I learnt it in art school, but that was like over 10 years ago. Then I had, my printmaking sort of past, and then this is all like I'm learning again and figuring out what my visual language is.
Yes.
And
it's interesting, I suppose, because one day you will look back on this, I suppose, period and think, I remember that was a bit, I went for my first exhibition opening. It was quite scary in a way, and I think looking back, it's interesting to remember that time as well. So I suppose it's important to remember that you need to allow yourself to enjoy that process and explore. And I mean, I think we all kind of get worried about, how it's going to look and what people might think and all that. But it's a really interesting process to go through, to think, okay, I just have to let all that go and do my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very affirming in the end. I mean, my work's been up since Monday. I've actually already made 3 art sales too.
Oh,
so then
great.
that sort of gives, thank you.
Yeah.
It sort of gives validity to what you're doing.
Oh, it sure does. And that's something I wanted to say too. For those Christmas shoppers out there, you have some really good, affordable, small artworks.
Yeah, I did make them a lower price point and quite affordable too.
Yeah.
I guess this is my first sort of coming out in the painting world as well. So I think I didn't want to set the bar like really, really high. And then it also just allows me to sort of like move through them and make more sales, and then I can reinvest in the next project.
Absolutely. It's quite a big body of work. There are quite a few pieces there, so there's lots to look at, lots of different price points for people that are out there looking for beautiful, pieces of work. A lot of the work is on paper. It's unframed, so that keeps the prices down a little bit too, I suppose, and nice and affordable.
Yeah, it does.
But as I mentioned before, very beautiful spring-like, and I think you focus on like a joyous kind of a process too, don't you? And that's something that you're kind of talking about with your work, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That definitely comes into it. I mean, I take sort of my experiences. I'm quite inspired by nature, so I take that essence with me and then bring it back to the studio and then sort of try and recreate that joy and use my materials to sort of create that feeling.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, we're running out of time very, very quickly, but your exhibition, The Healing Pallette, opens this Saturday.
Yes.
The 26th of October.
That's right.
At 12 p.m. till 2 p.m.
Yes, that's right.
At the Gallery Lounge, it's called, at the Mecure.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can just drive in that sort of main driveway there, park in the car park and walk back up to that main sort of Gallery Lounge, and you see the work as soon as you walk in the door there, don't you? And what else do we need to know? Everybody is welcome.
Yes,
There'll
that's
be
right.
refreshments and nibbles.
There will be.
And an opportunity to buy some work.
Yes, of course.
And congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's great, isn't it? It's a real achievement, isn't it?
It is. It's a real personal achievement. So I'm at the point now, the work's up on the walls and I'm breathing a sigh of relief, and I actually feel quite accomplished. So
that's fantastic. And we'll get you in again sometime, Laura, to talk about the St John of God Cartwheels program as well. I know you've got you're very busy work-wise behind the scenes there as well as your artwork. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And the exhibition's on until the 1st of December, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's open until then.
So make sure that it's easy to get to see, folks. The opening hours are quite broad because it's in the Mecure hotel there, so you don't have those limited times to check it out. Thank you very much, Laura Day. Your Facebook page is Laura Jane Day. And as you mentioned, you're on Instagram as well.
Yeah, the same name, Laura Jane Day. Yep.
And people can follow what you're doing and seeing those gorgeous videos that you post as well of your art process.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Pauline.
An absolute pleasure. I'm really excited for you. I really am. I've been watching you get this work together and with great interest. I really congratulate you. It's wonderful to see,
Thank
Laura.
you. That's so nice of you to say. Yeah,
congratulations. Good. All right, we're going to have a listen to some more Amy Brule and then I will be back with more. Stay tuned. Oh, that's the lovely Amy Brule. I love her work. It's great to have her playing in the studio. Otherwise known as Amy Sexton, many of you will know her as Amy Sexton, talented performer and local artist. Now, it's one of those Wednesday evenings when we have guest presenters, and tonight we have Mary Card Hap Hayward. Welcome.
Thank you for welcoming us.
Hello, sausages.
What a start.
And I'm going to let you take it away.
Thanks, Pod. Well, we've Hap and I have had a comprehensive meeting over the phone of about 8 minutes, and we decided today, because it's Halloween, that we're going to talk about death. So buckle up, everybody. It's happening. Now, we're going to talk about death in a really big context of all the little deaths that you can have in your life. Not just people, actually conking out on you, but a bad haircut can sometimes feel pretty horrid.
Yeah, I'm living that. Oh, that death, yeah. 2 weeks now, and I'm quite comfortable to be on radio with this haircut.
Yeah, well, it does look quite smart. Everybody, Hap's hair does look a bit cut.
But my beard's getting out of control, and I actually taught a young grade 5 boy who asked me a question, and he said, "Is that beard real?" I thought, honestly, would you think I would bother with such a thing?
It's time to get up, everyone. I've got to put on my fake beard.
Yeah, it takes hours.
I guess vanity has no limits.
No, especially when you're... I'm like 5 years behind everybody else. It was very hipster. It was very hipster to have a very long beard, and this is the longest I've ever gone, but I'm about 5 years too late.
I think you wear the beard well, though. I was staring out my front window the other day, living my best life, and a dude walked past with a beard, and frankly, he wasn't... It was wearing him. It was bloody big.
Yes, right.
And he was a bit of a no-neck.
Yes, well, with chins, when I always said when they were handing out chins, I was out the back having a smoke, and that's why... I'm glad to cover the chinlessness.
Yeah, well, I don't have that option. Well, I probably do now that I'm getting old. Maybe I'll let my chin hairs grow out.
Well, why not?
I don't know. It's fun to pluck them out. And Hap and I do call ourselves the oversharers.
That's right.
Yeah, the oversharers. And sorry and thanks for that, listening to that. But yeah, there's...
You had to think about last things, because this whole idea of Halloween, because I knew that I had a few gigs to plug around Halloween with various artists and things, and then you started talking about little deaths and in the context of things that will never happen again.
Yeah. And I realised the other day that I'll never buy Windex ever again, because when Mum and Dad moved out of their house, and they were divvying up all the stuff, I ended up with this bulk bottle of Windex, and it's like a 6 litre bottle. It's an industrial.
Okay.
And I'll occasionally clean a window on a car if it's really grimy.
Yes.
In fact, I actually think I'm going to hand this Windex down to my own children, and I reckon they'll hand it down to theirs. I don't think anyone's buying Windex for the next 25,000 years.
And so it covers, it will probably last a generation or more.
But all the other things that you own, now I'm over 40, 41 and a half nearly, there are many things that I reckon I could probably tally up now and just go, well, I'm not going to do that many more times before I'm dead.
Okay.
As I say, I do live my best life thinking about these things.
We did talk about our children. I remember I did post this thing, because I am an oversharer, a photograph of my daughter, and I did remember that writing about the fact that there was a time when I picked her up, and someone had told me there is a time in your life when you pick up your child physically and you won't ever do it again.
Mm.
I mean, I'm sure you probably might, if you're both drunk at a party or something. But
or if they're in your way.
You're trying to get them out of the way of a train or something.
Yeah.
But there's
those situations pop up all the time.
Yeah. You put your child down and you don't pick them up again. And I'm at that stage with my 38-year-old daughter. No. With my children now.
Yeah. I mean, my youngest daughter is 11 and I haven't picked her up for many years. In fact, now I feel sad. So thanks for that. But
I'm sorry.
And also, she's nearly as tall as me now. And I'm 5'8" 3/4", everybody, so you can have a visual if you want.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a bit depressing. And all the things, children have lots of those little deaths of things all the time. Like, when's the last time you'll ever see them playing with something? Like that, for me, that's really coming up fast now as my kids grow older and they're going to stop playing with stuff, which is good because I don't have to pick it up anymore. But it is like a mini death.
Okay, I understand that context. Yes, because I was wondering where we were going to go with our joviality when you said, no, I'd like to talk about death. We mentioned a few famous deaths and some stick more than others, and why. I told you that the two that most significant for me were Rick Mayall and Robin Williams, and maybe because they seemed before their time. But every day on Facebook, you can pretty much guarantee you open a page, maybe it's the ones you've chosen, and people out there who have made significant lives in the arts and cinema and song. are naturally passing away. But some seem to be before their time, and they seem to be the ones that stick the hardest. Especially if you become a fan on the fan page and they're constantly sticking up pictures of Rick Mail and Robin Williams.
Well, you know who died not long ago? Luke Perry from 90210, which of course all TAP listeners will be very familiar with 90210, the original version. And Luke Perry he played a really, really, really hot 16-year-old who actually looked like he was about 38.
That's right. That was a bit of a running joke about how old he actually...
I think he was actually 27.
There was an actress who was actually topped everyone who was
68.
in her early 30s. And they've just rejigged, obviously, without Luke.
He's dead.
But they've carried on.
No, I don't know what's going on.
I thought there was some sort of new...
Once Shannon Doherty was out, I was out. She walks, I walk.
Well, fair enough. And she walked a lot. She was very...
She had legs.
Yes, but she actually did. She... what would you say? You've got to be very conscious. She was a difficult person to work with.
She was a bit of a bitch. Yeah, so...
It seemed, from what I've read.
From a friend told me. But Luke Perry died this year. And he was only 50. And he had a stroke, I think.
Yep.
And he's in this show called Riverdale, which is the current generation's 90210, and it's utter trash.
Oh, it's about Archie.
It's about Archie, that's right.
And Riverdale, Lenny and I used to read Archie comics, so I sat down with my daughter to watch an episode of Riverdale with Archie and Jughead and Veronica, and I went, what the heck?
I know.
What is going on here?
In this version of Archie and the comics or whatever it is, the kids of that little town, Riverdale, are running a speakeasy below the diner. So it's a bit different to what you were probably...
They just had the diner. They had their milkshake.
They didn't have a speakeasy.
They held hands.
They're not just holding hands. They're kissing on this show.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there you have it.
But anyway, Luke Perry, he died.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very sad for some reason. I don't know why. I always felt very sad by it.
Okay.
And I kept thinking, I've got to do all these things in my life because if bloody Luke Perry can die, I can die.
Okay.
And so, but it's worn off now and I'm back to being looking out the window. So it doesn't take very long.
I do remember a significant death from my father. He was training as a soldier in Fortuna, and it was in, obviously, the early 60s, and a fellow ran in and said, Kennedy's been shot and he's dead. And my father couldn't leave the bunk all day. He lay there staring at the ceiling, and the only thought he had all day was, who would kill Graham Kennedy?
Who would? Bert Newton is the obvious answer.
But he loved Graham Kennedy that much that he had no context that there was another more famous Kennedy that possibly...
that is the best. That's,
I'm glad he shared that one with me.
Yeah. Is that for reals or is that a habit?
No, it's really for real. He honestly spent the day mourning Graham Kennedy because he just thought, this is a like, how can we let people, walk in a G to V9 with a gun and down the king?
Little did he know that in the future, Graham Kennedy would die.
Well, yeah. I wonder,
just like that.
But, yeah, no, not in Dallas.
No. Oh, that's hilarious. I wonder if we might have a little song.
Okay, let's make it. Actually play on. That's good.
Yeah, you're ready?
We're getting very crazy.
Yeah.
Just give me a moment to get that going.
That was the Cranberries with Linger, and of course I carefully chose that because the singer is dead, Dolores O'Riordan, and what a great band the Cranberries are. Absolutely smashing. One of my all-time favourite songs.
A beautiful song, Mary, and I haven't warned you about this, but I did once at the Mallow Hotel, and my good friend Paddy O'Driscoll had the Mallow Hotel. I put that on the jukebox, and I stood on the table and I was singing it like it was K-San or something like that. And it went down pretty poorly, but I just loved it that much that with the Jamisons and the and the beautiful voice. I actually thought that's one of my favourite songs from the 90s. And when I first listened to it, I thought she was American because it's hard to tell with certain accents in songs. And I just thought this was a very well-produced film clip, and they look all young and spunky and interesting. And
a lot of Doc Martens.
Yeah, I didn't know they were Irish for quite some time. But that song, pardon the pun, did linger, and I think it means a lot to many people.
I'm not going to let that one go, actually.
Fair enough.
No pardon for that.
You shouldn't. I should never be pardoned for a pun.
No, not one like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's oh man, there's been a lot of artists. I don't know many visual artists at all. I mean, I know Hi Pod, but I don't. That's not really my field. But a lot of musicians who've died, or they've died clearly.
Mm-hmm.
It's been quite. Yeah. What about when Prince died?
Yes,
that was a shock.
I thought George Michael was a real shock too, but it happened just on Boxing Day, where everyone's sort of out shopping, or their mind is. But I felt like it was very, very poor timing for George Michael. There have been some artists actually coincide badly with each other with their deaths, where one overshadows the other, and I just think that's a shame for a sense of they should have been more organised.
Yeah, and then the sense of ceremony, and probably also their mums might have got mad about that as well.
No, that's true. Now Halloween is coming up, and just remind me to plug a few events if that's all right, to bring it. I can
remind you to do that, and
sure,
we can do that at the end if you want.
Lovely.
And good old Halloween. I mean, I was going to play zombie, but I thought it was going to be a bit cliched.
Sure. Like my pun, I probably would have called you out on it.
Yeah, you probably would have. What about the other little mini deaths that we have day to day? Like you were saying earlier that sometimes in your job you'll come across people who've unfriended you on Facebook.
Oh,
so
yes.
when you unfriend someone on Facebook,
yes,
you are essentially saying, look, I don't want to even see you on the internet anymore.
Yeah.
You're dead to me.
Yeah.
You're dead to me.
And
then and in a town like Ballarat, you're not dead to anyone. I see people around. I see these two girls who literally punched me in the face in Year 9, and I see them around town. You can't ever forget anything in Ballarat.
That's the truth. But it's an interesting thing, the way you can become quite attached to Facebook, and then you become quite attached to yourself on Facebook, and I'm speaking for myself, where it becomes a almost like a part of your personality. And I had a friend come into the pub. I work at the Eastern pouring beers who unfriended me, and we just pretended there was no elephant in the room, really. And it was quite nice. But there was that swinging grey thing sitting there making a lot of noise and remembering everything. That was unusual. It was unusual because you do want to say, there's a part of you that just wants to say, why did you defriend me? Was it that one post when it was 2:00 in the morning and I elaborated strongly on something?
You live streamed yourself singing Linger on a jukebox.
Yeah, some people do live stream themselves, and I never watch that just in case I have to go to court or something after it.
What I've found on Instagram, people go live, and what ends up happening is I click on it with this, and it's an impulse click. It says so-and-so is live, and I just go, okay, and I press on it. And then it shows who is in the live, who's watching, and it's usually just me and them, and I'm mortified, and I have to get out immediately. It's like...
And does it say Mary Carter's gotten out immediately?
No, it doesn't. And then I feel bad because I'm like, well, I was their only audience, and now I've gone.
Does it then say Mary Card wants to come back in immediately?
I can just go back in. But by that point, I've deleted the app. I've deleted the app. I'm trying to get my whole digital footprint off the sand. I'm freaked out so much about that. It happens every time. There are memes about that. There are many, many memes about going live on Instagram or Facebook.
Okay.
Just altogether, because it's... I think what you get is you get people accidentally doing it, and you get like 10-year-olds doing it.
Right. So they could be possibly meant to have checked their phone, and they're suddenly live.
And they're just driving through Macca's drive-through, getting a milkshake.
Well, that would be okay.
Actually, that is something I would watch. I wouldn't leave. I'd be like, I'm here for that.
There's a lot of things people watch out there from, I think we might have talked about it last time, from unwrapping presents to talking in a very gentle and slow, boring voice.
Unfortunately for everyone out there, that's not the last time they'll hear us talk about that. Or the Windex, I'll probably talk about that again down the track as well.
Yeah. I'm big on the environment, so I do recycle my material. God, that was a terrible one.
That was pretty bad.
Well.
Have you ever had...
an original thought?
Have you ever had, like, a beloved pet die?
Yes.
And I don't say pass.
Gosh.
I'm a very pragmatic person about death, generally, and I don't like to pussyfoot around.
Okay.
So I say dead and died, and I think sometimes I offend people, and I'm very sorry because when people die, I do feel sad on your behalf. However, I do also like to laugh about everything.
Well... my history on Facebook yesterday told me that our little dog Jinxie had passed away 8 years ago. The Jinxie was a cross between a Chihuahua and a Muppet.
Yeah.
And it was a gorgeous little thing. Literally, its heart was too big for her. She got an X-ray and her heart was literally the size of a football bladder. And we found out later that she was one of those poor puppy farm jobs.
Oh, right.
Because we just ended up looking after Jinxie when a friend didn't want to anymore. And that popped up, and we had a little ceremony where we actually had a ceremony in the backyard when the children were quite young. And I remember a little reading, and we had candles.
Did you sing Linger?
I can't remember if there was a song. I probably would have chosen a Morrissey song. He was still in favour at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, pets, of course. You talk to many people, and they often put it on Facebook, and I always make sure to treat it with the respect it deserves, because these are companions, and they mean a hell of a lot to people and their relationships with.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had a dog, little died. She was about 40 billion years old, and she just walked off the edge of the deck one day. That's not how she died. I put her down. Story, I should probably stop. I didn't put her down personally, but I had her put down because I thought, well, if you can't keep on the deck, it's time.
Wow, remind me not to stand on your deck at any time soon.
Yeah, poor little, I have pretty strict rules for the dogs.
I might, if I ever go out to have a gasper, I'll go out on the footpath. Sorry, Mary.
No, poor little. I actually really loved her so deeply. Poor little. She was a little Chihuahua as well. She was a complete idiot of a dog. But yeah, when she was so blind and deaf and couldn't smell anything and walked off the edge of the deck, so I got her put down and we had a little funeral for her. We buried her up at Mum and Dad's house, which has now been sold to these two lovely fellas from Mount Eliza, and little do they know that they walk around daily on the bones of about 800 of our family dogs that we've buried out there. And, you know, the kids were dead keen to have a funeral. That wasn't even meant to be a pun, but yeah.
It was, though, and I'm calling you on it.
You should.
And they were keen, is that right?
Yeah, they were really keen to take part in the ceremony and the pomp and say some words about Little. And, in fact, Little hated them. Okay. Little hated them, like, to her very bones.
You didn't happen to mention that in the reading or anything?
No, I didn't say, and here lies Little, and she hated all children.
Okay.
But she did. She hated him and children. And she looked, you know, remember Gizmo on the Gremlins?
Oh, yes.
She looked just like Gizmo. She had the white markings, and she was very, very cute and obviously very little.
Yes.
And kids would see her and rush towards her, and she would basically just grease them off and hide under a chair.
I think that's probably protective, because our daughters were very little with Jinxie and often treated her like an actual doll.
Yeah.
Like we'd find Jinxie in a kind of handbag. And, and sort of all sorts of places in the dollhouse, sitting there with various dolls.
Well, I now have 3 Chihuahuas. My daughter has one, which essentially is mine, isn't it? I have to look after it. And, yeah, they have been dragged up and down the street in prams and clothing and, you know, props in plays. So when they die, that'll be probably, apart from when my mother died, it'll be the first experience of death for my kids.
Many kids, that is the case. Yeah. They say that's kind of an interesting sort of conversation to be able to have with the child, and that experience is quite important. Yes.
Oh,
gosh, what a downer.
Good talk, everybody. You know, it's pretty important, the talking about the dogs. But, yeah, it is... Pets can be really hard. I think sometimes we underestimate the effect that can have on a person too, that it can be a long-term grief. And this bloke I used to know, he had one picture in his house and it was of his dog that died when he was 11. He had like 5 brothers and sisters and a mother and friends and girlfriends, but just the dog, that was all that he really felt mattered in a picture frame.
There's a great song called Dogs Are the Best People by the Fauves. So they were a band that were around in the 80s and 90s, and it was a really lovely sentiment and some people share this quite often. They say that they have more of a relationship and more of a deeper understanding of everything with their dog next to them than they do with other human beings. Yes.
Well, I just find that I just shout at my dogs. I mean, lovingly, everybody, don't call the RSPCA, but I do. Yeah, they're not... Look, it's not going to be a shock to anyone to learn that Chihuahuas aren't the smartest breed. They're not. Okay, so don't be surprised when, like, my dog Cedric literally jumped out of a window one time.
Of a moving car, or...?
No, just of a house.
Okay.
He just jumped out. So, nobody can explain it. He was perfectly fine, but he's not very smart.
Okay. He may well have wanted to... get the hell out away from you, from yelling at you all the time. Oh, who knows?
Who knows? Now, you had a couple of things you wanted to
just
chat
Halloween
about.
Coming up. I know my brother Brett has started a little cafe called The Building in Main Road, and next week there's a Halloween art ball. And I've been asked to do some comedy when I told everyone I know that I didn't want to do comedy anymore. That's my excuse for tonight. I haven't done comedy, it's storytelling. I said I'm having a rest from comedy, but I'm emceeing they wrote comedy on the poster by Hap Hayward. Claire Birchall, and Bonnie Mercer and Adelita from Magic Dirt. She will be doing some DJing, and that's 4 till 8 at the Building. It's an all-ages affair because we're trying to get more and more things for the younger generations. We discussed that last time we were on.
Yeah, we did.
Another thing that was all ages is Sundays at the Eastern. The grand final of their Battle of the Bands that's been running for some weeks now is on this Sunday. It is all ages, and it has been great to see young people playing who aren't allowed to buy beer. And it's really good.
Playing sober. Well, that's a thing, isn't it? We assume.
Yes. Well, so that's a wonderful thing. So there are a lot of things going on at the moment for our younger generations who are not necessarily 18. And the Eastern has a wonderful band on this weekend called the Senegambian Jazz Band. And they're meant to be really fascinating. So they're playing in a very kind of interesting venue, really. And we're hoping people come down to the good old Eastern, where I work on Wednesday nights. And they let me come here and come back. And I said, look, I'll just take an hour and a half off my pay or whatever, we'll work it out.
It's a split shift.
It's a split shift. And, the good old Eastern. They were my first job I got after getting out of teaching. And so I'm loyal to them, and they're incredibly loyal to me.
Well, I just wanted to mention Reclaim the Night. I'm sure other people have. That's Friday night at 7:30 at the lake.
Very good.
That's us, I reckon.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Hap Hayward and Mary Card. And we will be back next week with more of the arts program. And George will be on with the Greek show very shortly.